Exciting times ahead. Today, we are covering the BioCup 2019, and we're in round 3 already. Very exciting stuff. I am over my sickness, so I'm all good to go for today's episode. So we're going to jump on in and talk about round 3. And what is round 3 all about? Well, it's all about architecture. So the people who are entering this round are being asked to build some sort of architectural marvel that you might see in a science fiction setting, or even the real world, or a fantasy setting, stuff like that. The 3 sub-themes are reality, sci-fi, and fantasy. So there you go. Exciting stuff. And so we're going to take a deep dive into architecture with Bionicle pieces. A little bit of a weird, different, out there theme. Not something that we've really covered that much before on the show. But like I said, I always love the BioCup because we get to cover some weirder, cooler themes. And it's exciting. So whether you're entering the BioCup right now, of course I left this episode a little bit later than normal. Normally I have these ones out relatively early after the announcement of the round. I didn't because I was feeling a little under the weather, but I'm all good now so I can record it. But maybe you've entered the BioCup and you're putting your finishing touches on the mock, because at the time of recording this episode, only one person has posted an entry. So still a lot of people left to post, so people are obviously still hard at work, and if that's the case, well, hopefully this episode gives you a little bit of extra food for thought, or you're putting those finishing touches on the mock and you go, actually, you know what? The stuff that Ben's talking about here, I might be able to put that into my mock, so let's give it a go. Let's do exactly that. Or maybe you're watching at home and you're not entering the BioCup, or you left the BioCup in a past round, and you go, you know what? Actually, yeah, let's look at some cool architecture mocks. Maybe I want to build something a little bit more out there, not a humanoid character, make a building of some kind. It's interesting, it's out there, it's different. Well, we're going to take a deep dive into how exactly you can do that today. First mock that we've got today, which we'll talk exactly about that, is a mock by Raiden, and is called Bionicle Mock Kraahkan Cathedral. Very, very nice name and a very, very cool mock. Really, really nice compact design here. Not a lot of gaps in this thing. Everything flows so nicely together. It's really, really well done. That's kind of how I imagine the process is with making this mock. And it could be an approach that you could use if you were making some sort of architectural design like this. Maybe starting with one point, which is what I imagine this mock maybe was, and just kind of riffing off of that and kind of seeing where it takes you. Maybe let's hypothetically say this is called the Kraahkan Cathedral. Of course, I don't know this guy's process, but let's speculate here. So the Kraahkan Cathedral, maybe he started with this Kraahkan and he sort of thought, oh, this could be some sort of interesting bit of a building of some kind. So maybe he started with that, and then he realized, hey, these black slicer feet here kind of flow nicely into that. Oh, what if I use these Metro feet pieces as kind of like windows on the sides of the building here. Put these transclear boric eyes in here as little like stained glass windows on the side of the building or something like that. Yeah, we'll see what we can do, and keep kind of riffing off of that. And we better add a Technic beam at the bottom there just to hold it all together. Put some other armor pieces, beep bop boop, and here we got the rest of the thing. Maybe that's how it worked, and maybe that's the process you can do, whether you're building an architectural marvel like this, or you're just building a Bionicle of some kind. Just pick up one piece, see what sort of stuff can kind of connect nicely with it, look for some connection points on it, see what other pieces might complement it nicely. Parts maybe flow nicely together or fit together in an interesting way, and just kind of keep going. Okay, how do I now connect those two pieces? And maybe this would go nicely with it too. Well, this is a similar color, maybe I could put it with it, and it could just keep growing until you get something. And that as well could also possibly be a bit of an explanation as to how compact this thing is. All these parts fit so nicely together. There's no gaps. There's no sort of weird things jutting out. Looks like some very seamless connections. If it was that sort of process of just this can kind of work with this and that and the other, and let's just keep expanding it until we're done, could kind of make sense as to why everything's so compact and nicely done there. Again, I'm speculating on a process here, but still, whether or not that's what Raiden did here, that's something you yourself could do anyway. It's still a process that you could possibly use in something that you might be making or planning on making. Give it a go. You never know what you might learn. Something else I like about this is you take a look at cathedrals in the real world, a lot of them are actually shaped in that cross design. And this, of course, is as well, as we can see from some of the different angles and the photography of this image. And that's a really good idea, isn't it? Why not, if you're building an actual building, do a bit of research, see what sort of designs those buildings might have, maybe some more interesting examples of in this case, a church or something, and see what sort of things are common. Maybe a lot of them have very large doors or don't really have any windows, or they are shaped like crosses, for obvious religious reasons. Maybe that's something you want to include in your own stuff. It could work quite well, and, it's just a logical thing to do, isn't it? If that's what they do in the real world, well, why not do that as well in your own stuff? And heck, maybe if you're in university, maybe, That's your chosen degrees. You're studying architecture. Could work quite well with your whole Lego thing that you're doing here. Maybe you've learnt some principles in architecture. I am not studying architecture, so I have no idea for that sort of stuff. But hey, maybe there's some interesting principles in architecture that you could actually directly apply to Lego. So maybe you could apply some of that stuff to some more building designs that you might be making. Could work. One final thing about this mock is I love all the nice part usages on it. It's amazing how when you're going kind of very against the norm, not making a humanoid character that is so central to Bionicle or Hero Factory, and actually making an interesting building like this. The nice part usages just come out of nowhere. The Kraahkan, the Metru feet, these shields here, these other masks that have been used here, the drill kind of forming the top of the tower. Almost everything on this is a nice part use. So if you kind of want to stretch those muscles, you love seeing people using some nice part usages, and whenever you build your stuff, it just doesn't kind of work. You're never quite able to do that yourself. Or you just want to play around with some nice piece usages. Just see, flex those muscles, see some interesting ways that you could be playing around with pieces. Maybe building some architectural things like that would be an interesting way to train that. Because they just seem to be flowing out, as we can see here. And speaking of flowing out with amazing part usages, let's actually take a look at another Raiden mock here. I wanted to specifically cover this because, yes, of course, this is his second mock in the episode, but I think this mock is also really worth talking about because it has a few principles that the other one does, but it does it a little differently. We wanted to talk today about the process and some methods that you could keep in mind if you were building something architecturally based in Bionicle. So we can see, of course, here a fantastic part use using this bulk arm here, and it kind of becoming this sort of awesome tower with these very intricate, greebly, interesting industrial kind of details in it, and the gun almost becoming a sort of smokestack chimney kind of thing. Same thing here with the launcher piece here, that also kind of looking like a smokestack, and this is a Hero Factory, right? So of course it might have those sort of chimneys and different things and a sort of more industrial look to it, which is pretty cool. I quite like that. And also quite like how this is micro scale as well. It's designed for, a scale that would be smaller than minifigures. Imagine the actual people would be very, very tiny if you were to actually make a little scale version of a little dude that would be working in this factory here. And it works really well because you put this Hero Factory core here, and it kind of looks like the signage on the building, something like that. So that's a clever little detail there. I really, really like it. And it's interesting too, a lot of the textures on Bionicle pieces do kind of naturally lend themselves to a more industrial kind of detail-heavy look like this. So maybe building, you want to build a building. You're liking what I'm putting down here. You're liking this idea of making something architectural, but you're like, well, do I build a house? Do I build a skyscraper or something more out there or interesting? Maybe an industrial look would possibly better serve just the look of a Bionicle part. So there you go. If that's something you want to build that, but you don't know what exactly, there you go. Build a factory of some kind. It could just work better for the parts that exist already. Again, also, this is a very compact design. I reckon probably same principles as my hypothesis for his process on there. Just sort of probably starting with that bulk arm and just seeing what else flowed well with it. Very cool. Very nicely done. Let's move on to the next mock. This is by Poor Disadvantaged and is called Attack on Plague Mech. Very cool mock. Really like it. I always forget about it. Maybe you guys do too. Let's never forget that Bionicle actually did make system-style Bionicle. I keep hitting my table. That's the second time this episode. People. The Lego company actually did. Well, they are people, to be fair. The Lego company did make Bionicle system sets. They were the Bionicle play sets, as they are called in the community, I guess. I'll probably be showing them now. That's right, Ben, you got to do some editing at the end of this episode. So by all means, use some of those pieces, maybe even use some of the techniques that those sets had, because it was a Bionicle thing. Why not, for example, this mock here uses that big old mask piece there that did come on a Bionicle play set. So it works quite well, helps to kind of fit in with the Bionicle aesthetic. Of course, this mock was actually entered into last year's BioCup, I believe. Yes, it was. Also round 3, there you go. So that alone, I think, is pretty cool. And we can also see here this very interesting rocky-looking texture that's sort of at the base of this wall here. It's sort of where the wall transitions into the dark tan landscape below. That is also from a Bionicle playset, a very interesting, big, large piece like that. So all sorts of different things that you could use from those Bionicle playsets that would work well for this sort of thing. So if you are kind of aiming for a bit more of a system Bionicle look, the ones we saw before were very Technic and Bionicle, and even Hero Factory heavy, didn't really use that much system, if any. Whereas this one is a lot more system heavy, but does have some nods to Bionicle. So the little nods could be the specific Bionicle pieces that came in those sets, or, just finding ways that you can kind of integrate both of them in there. This one has some interesting details on it, like those claw pieces kind of being some wall detail, some swords being kind of the gate under where the entrance is and the sort of mouth of the mask there, and a few other things here and there for some more Bionicle-focused pieces in there. So you can, of course, blend the two, and having a bit of system would, I reckon, definitely be a lot more helpful for that sort of thing. And of course, then you've got this awesome monster here that is attacking this fortress using a whole bunch of cool pieces. Actually, I've already gone into a fair bit more detail about this specific guy here in the last episode he was on in the old BioCup coverage. So if you really want to learn a little bit more about this guy, I'd say check that one out there. I don't want to repeat myself too much. But he looks super cool. And I think that's actually something else that's really cool. Maybe you are struggling a little bit with the building that you've made, or you think it's cool, but it's kind of missing something. Well, why not give it a cool guy that's attacking it, As awesome as the skyline is, it's way cooler when Godzilla's attacking it. So maybe build the Godzilla to be attacking it, or, maybe build King Kong standing on top of the Empire State Building there. Something like that could be cool, a way to kind of make the mock pop a little bit more. And if you are entering the BioCup, that is always something that's a good thing to do, is to add a nice little accent point to it, add something else to it that really makes it stand out, makes it a lot more unique. Because, the theme's architecture. Everybody's going to build the buildings, but who's going to think to build the big ape standing on the top of it? Something that could give you a little bit more of an edge. And maybe you aren't entering the BioCup, but you still like this idea of building some architectural Bionicle thing. And you're midway through building it, and you're like, oh, this is doing my head in, I need a break. You know what, I'm going to build Godzilla, and he'll be attacking it. So I'll go back to my normal humanoid mocks, my normal sort of animalistic thing, more humanoid, human-style creatures or characters, You build that, and then you come back to your architecture, and you go, okay, that's now I'll get to it. And honestly, sometimes that's the best thing to do, Sometimes I build mocks super quickly, and sometimes I like to take my time with them. I'm doing that right now, actually. And it's that thing of, this isn't really working. I'm gonna just sit on it. I'm gonna just let the ideas stew in my head. Whether that's me consciously letting them stew, third time I hit the table, whether that's me consciously stewing on the ideas, actually sitting and thinking, okay, how can I fix this? Or, for right now, I have a giant Titan mock sitting right next to me every time I record. And I always look at it, and I'm always like, yeah, I'll get back to you, don't worry. But right now, I hate how it looks. It looks awful. By my own standards, so I'd like it to look a little bit more better. And it will, in time, but I'm not ready yet to address it. One day I'll be sitting and I'll be having my cereal as I'm having breakfast, and I'll be thinking about what I'm going to do today. And I'll go, you know what? No, it's time. I'm a make this, I'm gonna fix him. I'm gonna make my dragon look a lot cooler. I have an idea. It's popped into my head. Ideas always come at the weirdest times sometimes. So you never know. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, is just sit on it for a bit. But I digress. One quick thing I wanted to talk about with this mock. Love the sort of irregular landscape under this beautiful dark tan really popping up against the black here. It looks lovely. Also really cool how many different plate pieces he's used here, whether they are sort of more circular or wedge plates. I believe that's the appropriate term. I never call them that. I don't know. I just point to them and say, I'm going to use that piece. I never really physically say wedge plate or anything like that in my vocabulary there. But besides the point, using a more sort of intricate landscape like that, rather than just having it look more blocky and very typically Lego, I very much enjoy making landscape with Lego. That's what I like to do. And I'll throw up a few examples of what I do. My personal recommendation, if you are making something, is put a bit of landscape under it and try and make it look really organic. Make it have some interesting snot techniques around the sides. Snot standing for studs, not on top, so that it has some more interesting depth to it, and add some details, add some stems or plants or trees or something popping out of it. I don't know. See what you can do. Just play around with your landscape. See how you can stretch it a little bit. Use some interesting pieces to expand it in some different ways. Who knows? On to the next one. This is by Galaxis and is called Zamor Energy Turbine. Zamor. I said it right. I'm pretty sure. Anyway. I've actually talked about this before in the past, but I think this was like in like single-digit episodes, actually. So this is ages ago since I've talked about this, but I won't go into too much detail about it, but I think this honestly very, very much fits into the architectural theme. I love it. So cool. What an awesome design. Very heavily uses some Technic pieces here. You know, the main beam of this wind turbine thing here uses a bunch of pieces that you see in some Technic sets. There's very large kind of like panel pieces that can kind of form, you know, the bulk of a car or a Jeep or something from any of your Technic sets. And honestly, a lot of those pieces in Technic sets like that can easily be transferred into Bionicle stuff. So if you're eyeing one of those sets, it might be worth buying, because quite honestly, you know, whether you want to make it for what it is or use its parts for Bionicle, go ahead, it'll probably be helpful for you, like we see here. But yeah, what I love about this is the fact that he's used a bunch of more, I'm going to say useless pieces, and like, I'm sorry pieces. I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean to say that you have no worth, because you do, like we can see on this mock here. And you do have worth, but in my opinion, I know for a fact, I'm looking at it right now, I have a big old drawer of weapon pieces, of those weird funky Technic panel pieces, other weird like fin pieces, these Zamosphere launchers, those jets that you can see here. A bunch of these parts I have in very large quantities, and I never use them because I just don't. I'm sorry, I don't, you know? So why not put all of those pieces together and make something really out there and weird and interesting like this? Making a wind turbine, and then making a little character who has a little spanner thing like that, and he monitors this, and you get a fun story, you get a really interesting out there mock, and instead of those pieces sitting in a bin and doing nothing, you actually have a really interesting, unique mock, and it can sit on your shelf, and you can go, yeah, I did that. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I like that. And I think I said that exact same thing when I talked about this last time, but I may be repeating myself. But those principles are really important for this, and I think that's really good, because with architecture stuff, you can do that. You can use some of those more interesting and obscure pieces and use them really creatively and really uniquely uniquely, is that a word? It is now. In a mock like this, a funky, weird wind turbine. Who would have thought to have made a funky wind turbine in Bionicle form? Galaxus would have, and maybe you can do the same. I think it's pretty cool. And I love the little sort of like story element that, probably, the wind moves the turbines and powers these Zamospheres. And then, maybe they take the Zamospheres away and use them in the weapons, and they're sort of, charged so that when they hit something, they kind of explode or have an electrical current or something. Or, in this universe, those Zamospheres are little energy things. You, like, put them in a tractor, and the tractor moves now, or something like that. There's a story being created. I like it. It's super, super cool. On to the second last mark of this episode. This is by Joxon, or as I have not called him in a long time, DJ OK-san. And this is called Mindphaser Tactical AI. So I really like this. Mitch Henry once said to me that, it might have been in a podcast too, I don't remember, or it might have just me and him talking. But he's saying, well, one of the coolest things is getting a mock that has this beautiful integration between Bionicle and system, because then you get some of those system builders who come in and they're like, yo, this is cool, and you get some of those Bionicle builders who come in and they're like, yo, this is cool. And quite often that can happen, Bionicle builders being like, I love system, I didn't even know how to build that sort of thing, and you get Bionicle people who think the same, or the other way, I can't remember which one I started with. But either side of the fandom can think that, they're like, I love it, I just don't understand it, I can't do it myself, and then you get mocks like this, which perfectly combine the two of them, and then both sides can come in and be like, yo, that's cool, hey, you use some interesting pieces there that I don't normally use, maybe I'm going to do the same. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I like that. Besides the point, though, love the fact that he's used a bunch of these hand connector pieces and these Horde connects and things. He's created this really interesting kind of walled texture there. Again, look, it just looks really, really cool. Looks really industrial. We're kind of talking about pieces naturally lending themselves to a more industrial sort of look. And you can get some interesting textures, interesting design overall. It uses a bunch of the same pieces, and pieces that I have in fairly large quantities, and I think other people probably do. I'm sure Joxon does here. I mean, look, he has them physically in the picture. But it seems like that's something you could more easily reproduce to some degree, which is pretty cool. And also using a bunch of these Technic pieces here for kind of like this pipe look on the floor here, and then having this exposed pipe here with little wires. It just simply is just done with little rubber band parts. I think that's super cool. That's super clever. I really like that. And then the little introduction of a caution sticker here with a little number thing on it. It really helps to tie that industrial look together. Really, really cool. So maybe you do want to build something architectural, but you don't want to actually build a physical building. You could just build something like this. A little, I had touched the table again. You could actually build, like an interior. So it's still kind of fitting. It still kind of works. It's a little out there and a little different. It's nice. One final thing on this mock. Love the fact that the sort of focal point of this is that mask there. You got a whole bunch of different lines leading you towards it. Those wires draw your attention to there. kind of just the general, the walls kind of also draw your eye towards the mask. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, so the mask is kind of that focal point. And maybe you're not too sold yet on this architectural theme. Ben the salesman coming in here. You're going to be building an architectural mock because I'm selling it to you. Maybe you have a cool mask and you really want to kind of show it off somehow, and just placing the mask on your shelf doesn't quite do it for you. Maybe do something like this. So you build this sort of interesting setting for it. It's kind of sitting atop a table, maybe it's a bit like the golden fertility idol in Indiana Jones. It's nicely resting on this little obelisk, and yeah, it just looks kind of nice. Maybe you could do that. Build a little stand for a rarer part that you might have. That skull mask there isn't necessarily rare, but the gold version is a little bit more rare. So maybe if you have the gold version, you could kind of recreate this and show off that nice piece in a different light. That could be pretty cool. Final mock. This is by Cat H and is the Tower of Barad-Dur from Lord of the Rings. Super, super cool mock. Of course, one of the actual sub-themes was, build something from fantasy. Lord of the Rings is the example of fantasy, basically. So, pretty cool. And overall, a really beautiful mock that, again, combines system and Bionicle pieces very, very nicely. Very nicely. We take a look at this. There's a whole bunch of them sprinkled through here. Got some hand connectors on sort of forming some very nice details and textures there on the tower. Got some Borok eyes there that sort of very nicely kind of create these very sharp angles that very much fit the source material. Use some Hero Factory shells here, which kind of form the bulk of the bottom of the tower there. Very cool. Well, not quite the bottom of that larger bit of the tower, like in the middle of it. Yeah, you got it. And you got some gears there, forming some nice little sub-towers on this Tower of Towers. And then you've got a really nice technique here, which is actually used in a Lego set, but works really well here in a slightly different way. Stacking those black Hero Factory hand pieces together like that actually forms a nice little additional little tower like that. I'm using the wheel piece up there, which isn't really a Bionicle piece, but kind of is too. It has been used in Bionicle sets in the past to sort of form the top of the tower. Pretty cool. And all these different repeated pieces here. The part spam, it's good. It's very nice. And it works well here to kind of very much match the look of the actual source material. So very much so. If you can repeat a bunch of pieces like we see here, it might work to your advantage. It's pretty cool. And it's also really awesome to see just how many different pieces here really effectively work at creating some really clever towers. Again, more beautiful part usages here. Basically just using themselves, just coming out at you. It's very, very cool. And then some beautiful rock work done here as well with a bunch of those, rock system slope pieces there. Pretty cool. And of course, all these Bionicle pieces and Hero Factory pieces are perfectly integrated in here with a whole bunch of different system pieces. It's pretty cool. So yeah, really nice recreation of the Tower of Barad-Dur. Very cool. That's it for this episode today. Hopefully, Salesman Ben has convinced you to make something architecturally themed if you're not in the Biocup. Or if you are in the Biocup, hopefully, if you're putting those finishing touches on, you've been hit with that inspiration and you got some more ideas to further yourself a little bit more in the competition. And I wish you luck, because we're getting to the business end of this competition now. You might be wondering where the roundup is. Again, I've been sick, so I was going to post that a little bit sooner, but because I was sick, I didn't quite get around to it. My schedule got all messed up because of it. But I'll be recording that tomorrow, which may not be your tomorrow because of when I actually record this episode versus when I post it, but it'll be up very soon, do not worry. And that'll probably cover the redemption round / round 2? Yeah, round 2. So stay tuned, and then of course I'll do the roundup for round 3, and when people post more mocks, I'll do the other typical episode covering those mocks. Your typical Biocup stuff is on the way. Don't worry, all is well. Realized the other day I forgot to actually put this in the normal Bionicle Inspiration series that is on the weekends. So I figure I'll say it now. Biocup stuff, I don't. You can't submit stuff to it because it's just whatever's in the Biocup. But if you want to submit mocks to the typical Bionicle Inspiration series show, of course you can. You can do so through the email you're currently seeing on the screen. If you want to copy and paste that email, it is always in the description. Friendly reminder: if you ask me in the comments or you anywhere else on YouTube, anywhere, if you're like, hey, how do I submit to the show? Chances are I'm not going to tell you, because I tell you in every episode. I do actually reply to it a bunch, more than I should. Yeah. And also, if you have submitted it and you ask me, hey, Ben, did you get it? I probably won't reply, just because then I'd have to reply to like 100 different people, and that takes a lot of time. So I apologize that I can't. If I'm feeling nice, I might reply and let you know that, yes, I did get it. But there is the automatic email reply that says, hey, yeah, I did get it. But I get a whole bunch of people who are like, I never got that, but I sent it to you. And then I'd be like, yeah, I got your email. I didn't Did you not get that? That's weird. Do check your junk, because sometimes it goes to that. I don't know. If you don't get an automatic reply, like, I'm sorry? I don't know if that's just an issue with, like, Hotmail or Outlook or whatever it is. It's all good. One day it'll be on the show. Don't you worry. Anyway, this episode is way longer than I was intending. I will see you in the next episode. Hope you have a fantastic day. Hope your building is going very well. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, guys.